Montu is a B&M inverted roller coaster located at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay. Opening in 1996, this was once the tallest and fastest inverted coaster in the world. This would also be the first inverted coaster with an Immelman. An Immelman loop starts off with a half loop, then followed with a half twist, basically the opposite of a dive loop. The name Montu refers to the Egyptian god of war of the same name. This god was depicted as a man with the head of a falcon. Montu is located in the Egypt area next door to Corpus Christi. When you enter the area, you can see it has a pretty cool Egyptian theme. Going under the ruins, you're introduced by the first two elements of the coaster, the vertical loop and the Immelman. You can also see most, if not all, of the layout to the left. It's a great way to get a preview of the ride if you've never been on it before. To your right, you can see riders exit the station to the lift. Fun fact, when the ride first opened, there was a crocodile exhibit underneath the turnaround to the lift hill. Now talk about real foot choppers. Entering the station, you're greeted with switchbacks and moderate theming throughout. It's nowhere near the level of Corpus Christi theming, but it works well enough. Entering the station, you have a choice of 8 rows with 4 seats per row, meaning each train can carry a total of 32 riders. That's a lot of people per dispatch. However, on my last visit, they've only been running 1 train. This isn't a big deal on the weekdays, but on the weekends, I've seen waits go up to 70 minutes because they only run 1 train, even on busy days. The trains themselves have basic over-the-shoulder restraints, and for the most part, they're quite comfortable. For an older ride, it's still pretty smooth, so you shouldn't get any headbanging. The best rows, of course, are either the front or back rows. The front gives you an unobstructed view of the ride, and the back row is the overall more intense ride. As you leave the station, the floor drops and you're off. You take a dip to the right and climb the 150 feet lift hill. It's a fairly slow climb, but you'll get a chance to take in the views. As you approach the top, you hit a pre-drop, which is typical in older B&M coasters. You then hit a drop that curves to the left. In the back row, you're flung down the drop. You hit your first diversion, the vertical loop. This is the quintessential first element on a B&M looping coaster. It has some pretty good forces coming in and out of the loop. You then hit a tunnel to the next element, the Immelman. You enter this inversion with a lot of speed, and it can feel a bit intense going up. This element also provides some pretty good foot choppers. The next element is the 0G roll. This is a very snappy element that feels great in every row. The next element, in my opinion, is the signature element of Montu, the bat wing. This is by far the most intense bat wing I've ever ridden. This is one of the few elements that have my feet tingling. You enter a very snappy half twist and swoop down. This is a potential gray out moment here. You swoop back up in another half twist going the opposite direction from where you entered. You then rise up to the mid-course brake run. Afterwards, you make a twisting drop to the right to the second vertical loop. This is smaller than the first loop, so it's a bit more whippy. You then take an upward helix to the right going over the train tracks. This here is probably the weakest part of the ride, but at the same time, it's a nice break from all that intensity. You then drop and make a bank left to the final and whippiest element, the corkscrew. If you've never rode this may take you by surprise how forceful it is. You then make an upward right turn to the final brakes, and like that, your ride on Montu comes to an end. If you're enjoying this review, make sure to like this video and consider subscribing to Coasters and Travels. Your support goes a long way. The things I like about Montu, there's a lot. I love overall how intense this ride is. When you think of intense B&M coasters, Montu is near the top of that list. Every element delivers, but the best ones are the 0G roll, the bat wing, and the corkscrew at the end. I love the amount of trenches this coaster has. There's something about taking an element below ground level that makes the ride more exciting. Plus, they fit well with the Egyptian theme. The pacing in the first half is wonderful. You take each element with a lot of speed, and even with the trim before the bat wing, you are still flying like crazy. I mentioned it earlier, but this ride is still pretty smooth. For a ride that's been open since 1996 at a theme park that's open year-round, it's an accomplishment for it to be that smooth. Things I dislike. As of this review, I'm not a fan of the constant 1-train operations. On the weekends, it's a pain to get even one ride with the long wait times. Your best bet is to purchase a quick queue if you plan on going on the weekend. Hopefully, if you're watching this review far in the future, that issue has been taken care of. The second half of the ride does have a bit of pacing issues after the second loop. The helix slows things down a bit, but at least the ride still ends with a bang. And to be honest, it doesn't really affect how I feel about the ride overall. As you can see, there's a lot more pros than cons. Montu is an incredible roller coaster that has that good old B&M intensity, a great layout, and many fun moments. If you're planning a visit to Busch Gardens Tampa, Montu is a must ride and I wholly recommend you give it a try. I give this ride a 4.5 out of 5 stars.